She begged not to leave the hospital with her stepfather. Then the doctor followed them and was shocked when she saw, "Hello, welcome, enjoy, subscribe, and activate notifications." The anguished cries of the little girl echoed through the cold hospital corridors, each sob a needle of despair that seemed to pierce the hearts of everyone who heard her. Her big, pleading eyes turned to Dr. Rachel as she begged, "I don't want to go with him. Please don't let him take me." Beside her, the stepfather, a man with a furtive and somber look, waited impatiently. Rachel, a pediatrician, had never witnessed such a heart-wrenching plea. Her intuition screamed that something terrible was happening. "I want to stay here. I don't want to go with him," the girl continued, her voice overflowing with desperation. She clung to Dr. Rachel as if her life depended on it, her eyes begging for protection from an invisible but terrifying threat. Sensing the urgency in the child's voice, Rachel decided to act discreetly. She followed the stepfather and the girl to their home, and what she found there left her terrified. Rachel was a constant and comforting presence in the bustling pediatric ward of a large public hospital, known for her tireless dedication and deep empathy for her young patients. She often extended her 9-hour shift to attend emergencies and offer comfort. Her mornings began in the children's rooms, assessing their progress, adjusting treatments, reviewing exams, and coordinating discharges. She maintained a solid friendship with Dr. Thomas, the head of the pediatric department and a renowned specialist in congenital lung diseases. When he wasn't performing surgeries, Thomas dedicated himself to research in the field. Despite their busy schedules, they always found moments to catch up, whether over quick lunches at nearby restaurants or during coffee breaks. Thomas had admired Rachel since their college days when he was her professor. They both shared a great passion for pediatrics, but their schedules rarely allowed meetings outside the hospital. "Rachel, next month there will be a conference on congenital lung diseases," announced Thomas one day, encouraging her to participate. "That's fantastic. I'll try to adjust my schedule to attend," she replied, excited about the opportunity. Yes, raising awareness about lung diseases in children is crucial. Many need surgeries that unfortunately aren't performed due to a lack of proper diagnoses, Thomas commented, his tone laden with concern. "I'll do my best to attend. I hope everything goes well at the hospital during my absence," Rachel agreed. "Don't worry. We'll mobilize the team. Even though not everyone can go, it's essential that pediatricians and pulmonologists understand the importance of this event. But you especially need to go. This is crucial for your specialization," Thomas assured her and left to continue his activities. Rachel said goodbye to him with enthusiasm, eager to expand her knowledge. Passionate about studying lung diseases, she devoted her free moments to reading articles on the subject, a habit cultivated since childhood when her mother, a renowned pulmonologist, shared teachings about the human body, especially the lungs. At the end of another long day, while preparing to leave the hospital, Dr. Rachel ran into Dr. Sarah, who was starting her night shift. Sarah, a pragmatic colleague, often criticized Rachel for getting too emotionally involved with patients. "You get too involved, Rachel. The children have parents to take care of them," Sarah would often say. But Rachel couldn't be just a distant doctor. Inspired by the empathy she learned from her mother, she firmly believed that a genuine connection with her young patients was an essential part of care. Sarah always had something critical to say, sometimes becoming unbearable. "You should pay more attention to what you're doing. The children's parents might misinterpret your closeness," commented Sarah, her tone dripping with venom. "Why, Sarah? Everyone has their own way of being, regardless of the profession. I'm not breaking any hospital rules. What are you afraid of?" Rachel confronted her colleague, who seemed to only open her mouth to complain or make sarcastic comments. "Afraid? Please, Rachel, I'm going to work, and fortunately, I don't need to cross paths with you in the corridors today," Sarah replied, frowning in disgust and quickly leaving to avoid hearing more. The daily encounters between Dr. Rachel and Sarah in the hospital corridors became inevitable confrontations. Sarah never missed an opportunity to throw sharp words. At first, these barbs deeply affected Rachel, bringing her to tears and making her question whether she should continue at the hospital where hostility seemed unbearable. She constantly wondered why Sarah was so difficult. Then, A veteran nurse who had seen many stories unfold at the hospital confided in Rachel the real reason behind Sarah's behavior. It was pure envy. Rachel's natural friendliness and the affection she had for everyone overshadowed Sarah. This revelation changed Rachel's perspective. From then on, when Sarah approached with her biting comments, Rachel chose not to react, preserving her energy and avoiding the exhaustion of discussions fueled by jealousy. On one occasion, Rachel vented about the situation to her friend and boss, Dr. Thomas. He corroborated the nurse's perception, explaining that Rachel's popularity, especially her charisma with the children, made Sarah feel undervalued. The children saw Rachel as their favorite doctor, which led Sarah to question the value of her own work as a pediatrician. Reflecting on her emotional involvement, Rachel found herself immersed in thoughts until the end of her shift. She took a deep breath before heading home, pondering the most exhausting aspect of her routine. Rachel concluded that it wasn't the physical fatigue that was the biggest challenge, but the mental exhaustion of being a link between the children and their families, especially when delivering bad news. Due to her empathy, Rachel became deeply involved with each of her patients, making the emotional burden even heavier. Upon arriving home after an exhausting day of work, Rachel found her father, Samuel, comfortably seated on the sofa, reading his Bible as he did every night. The house smelled of homemade food. Samuel waited for his daughter every day for dinner, always insisting on preparing the meal himself because he loved to cook. After the meal, Rachel would settle on the sofa to share with her father the events of the day. "Guess what, Dad?" Rachel said cheerfully, as if Samuel already knew what she was going to say. "What did Dr. Sarah do this time?" He laughed, anticipating the conversation. "Ah, every day she finds something to pick on me about. That's no longer news. Today, Dr. Thomas informed me that there will be a conference on congenital lung diseases. I'm so excited," Rachel commented enthusiastically. Her father also became animated, showing empathy for his daughter's joy. He always said that her happiness was the reason for his happiness, and this thought accompanied Rachel throughout their conversation, providing her comfort before she went to bed. The next day, as soon as she arrived at the hospital, Rachel was informed that a girl with a lung problem had been admitted during the night and had undergone surgery under Dr. Thomas's care. Reviewing the patient's chart, Rachel felt a wave of concern. With a racing heart, she headed to the ICU to see the girl. In the corridor, she encountered a man in worn and dirty clothes, with a serious and suspicious expression, waiting for news about the little girl. "Hello, good morning. I'm Dr. Rachel, and from now on I'll be responsible for your daughter's care," she said kindly, without receiving an immediate response. Then she explained that Emily, the girl in question, was already better but had undergone surgery and would need to stay hospitalized for a few days. The man, revealing himself as John, Emily's stepfather, responded in a cold but evidently worried voice, "She only has me, but I need to work. I can't stay here. Don't worry, she is in good hands. Our qualified team will keep you informed about any changes in Emily's condition," Rachel assured. John's hurry seemed strange, but she decided to focus on Emily's health. After John left, Rachel cast a careful look at the girl, noticing her thinness, which seemed to tell stories of hardship. Emily's pale skin conveyed an alarming fragility, putting Rachel on high alert. Emily lay motionless, a strange serenity on her expressionless face, probably due to extreme fatigue. She seemed weak, with no signs of restlessness, and her deep silence suggested that even speaking would require enormous effort. Her breathing was labored, making each breath a visible struggle. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Rachel asked, trying to break the silence. Emily let out a timid smile, as if to show that she understood. Rachel watched Emily for a while, seeing her eyes slowly close as if her eyelids were too heavy. Soon, Emily's breathing became slower, indicating that she was falling into a deep sleep. Rachel felt as if she were in a movie scene where the victim had a chance to speak, but silence prevailed. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that she still had a long day ahead. Later, when Emily's other test results came back, Rachel discovered that in addition to the lung problem, the girl had a rare immune condition that made her extremely vulnerable to fungal infections. This new information increased Rachel's concern, prompting her to discuss John's behavior and Emily's physical state with Dr. Thomas. At that moment, She was informed that John had returned to the hospital to see Emily. Immediately, Rachel headed to the room, accompanied by Dr. Thomas. "Good afternoon, Mr. John," she greeted calmly and kindly. "How is Emily?" he asked, showing a bit of anxiety. "She is recovering under the effect of pain medication, but one of the tests came back positive for an immune condition that makes her recovery slower, requiring continuous observation in the hospital," Rachel explained. "What condition?" John asked, as if it were news to him. "Emily has a rare disease that makes her extremely vulnerable to fungal infections," Dr. Thomas interjected, observing John's behavior. "I didn't know that. I thought it was just allergic bronchitis. How long will she need to stay here?" John said, visibly unsatisfied. "We don't know exactly how long she will need to stay. It will depend on her recovery and the results of the tests. But rest assured, she will have doctors, nurses, and therapists at her disposal," Dr. Thomas explained. "Now, Dr. Rachel, could you come to my office?" Dr. Thomas asked. Rachel and Dr. Thomas left the room while John stayed with Emily for a few moments. He approached the girl and firmly whispered, "Emily, I hope you get better soon so we can leave here quickly." After John left, Rachel returned to Emily's room, who seemed sad and scared. Rachel watched Emily with a mix of curiosity and concern, wondering about the mysteries surrounding the girl's life. John's enigmatic presence seemed to disturb Emily, and this set off an alarm in Rachel's mind. Sensing this disturbing dynamic, the afternoon faded, and the night prepared to take over the hospital with its unsettling serenity. Rachel's heart ached at the thought of sweet Emily under Dr. Sarah's bitter care. She longed for dawn, eager to return and closely monitor her young patients. The next morning, upon arriving at the hospital, Rachel went straight to Emily's room. The girl looked even more fragile under the cold morning light, and Rachel felt an urgent need to comfort her. "Hello, Princess. How are you feeling today?" Rachel asked warmly, trying to inject some cheer into her voice. "I'm a little tired," Emily whispered, her voice carrying a deep exhaustion as her large, sad eyes met Rachel's. "It's normal to feel that way, dear. I'll tell you something special we did while you were sleeping. Inside your chest, your little lung had a problem, like a toy that needed fixing. But while you were sleeping, we fixed every bit with a little medical magic. Now your lung is recovering and getting even stronger," Rachel said with tender enthusiasm. "Did it hurt?" Emily asked, her curiosity mixed with fear, her eyes fixed on Rachel. "No, my love. You were sleeping deeply like a little princess. But if you feel any pain, let me know, okay? We have a magic medicine that will help you feel better," Rachel assured, gently touching the girl's hand. "Will I be here for a long time?" Emily asked, her face mirroring a touching vulnerability. "You'll stay just as long as necessary for your lung to fully recover. If you cooperate with us, eat well, and tell me everything you're feeling, I promise you'll leave here quickly and go back home to your friends," Rachel suggested, trying to lift her spirits. "Okay," Emily said with a shy smile, but her expression soon turned serious again. "Where is John? When is he coming back?" Rachel maintained her smile and responded softly, "He'll be back soon. He asked us to take care of you while he's working," she said, winking to convey confidence. That day, Rachel stayed by Emily's side, ensuring the girl ate enough despite her reduced appetite due to the medication. With gentle conversation, she tried to keep Emily interested and cheerful. Emily's small body was visibly frail, almost translucent, with a pallor that highlighted a network of blue veins in her delicate arms. Her eyes, though lively and expressive, were surrounded by shadows that told stories of sleepless nights and a relentless struggle. Her chest rose and fell with difficulty, a constant battle for her brave lungs. Emily's fragility went beyond the physical, making even eating a challenge. Rachel, observing her in the shared room, noticed that Emily interacted minimally with the other children. They played and laughed, but Emily kept her head down, smiling shyly now and then before quickly returning to her silence. She was a silent observer, maintaining a distance that didn't go unnoticed by the nurses and doctors. Questions about her family were met with silence or vague answers, leaving a trail of mystery. Emily's withdrawn behavior intrigued Rachel, who felt a growing desire to understand the girl's life outside the hospital. On a rainy day, While Rachel was finishing her rounds in the hospital, she entered Emily's room. The girl was curled up on the bed, her big eyes scared and fixed on the door. John had arrived unexpectedly, insisting on taking Emily home before she was ready. The nervous excitement and fear on Emily's face sparked a wave of concern in Rachel. The usually calm girl transformed into an anxious child, her eyes following every movement of her stepfather with anguished vigilance. Rachel wondered, is Emily suffering abuse, or is it just my paranoia? The suspicions grew with John's behavior, generating more questions than answers. A brief, tense conversation occurred with John, where the doctors informed him that Emily needed a few more days in the hospital. The news irritated John, making the situation even more suspicious. Rachel's colleagues also noticed Emily's nervousness during John's visits, confirming Rachel's suspicions and deepening her concern. Determined to protect Emily, Rachel intensified her attention to the girl's behavior and John's, noting any small change, any sign of discomfort or fear that Emily displayed. One afternoon, while reviewing Emily's medical records from the past few days, Rachel made a decision. She needed to ensure Emily's safety. The girl could not return to a potentially dangerous situation. Determined, Rachel approached Dr. Thomas to discuss her concerns. "Doctor, we need to talk about Emily. Something is very wrong. The presence of her stepfather visibly disturbs her, and I'm afraid she might be suffering abuse," Rachel began, her voice heavy with urgency. Dr. Thomas, already aware of the suspicions, listened attentively. "I agree, Rachel. We need to investigate this carefully and ensure Emily's safety. Let's contact the social worker and consider all means to protect her," he responded supportively. From that moment on, Rachel and Thomas dedicated themselves to ensuring Emily was not neglected, carefully evaluating her situation. The priority was the girl's well-being, who, despite her fragility, demonstrated resilience that inspired everyone around her. Hours later, John said goodbye to Emily, promising to return soon. As soon as he left, Emily broke down in tears, her voice choked with deep fear. "I don't want to go home, doctor. I want to stay here with you," Emily sobbed, her small body trembling with anguish. Rachel, always ready to offer comfort, took the girl's hand, her eyes filled with understanding. "Emily, dear, you are safe here. You can tell me what is happening," said Rachel, trying to calm the girl while reflecting on the evident challenges in her extreme thinness and reluctance to leave the hospital. The moment of vulnerability was abruptly interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Sarah, whose presence almost always meant displeasure. She had arrived earlier, ready to launch her acidic comments. "What's going on here?" Sarah asked, her tone filled with impatience. Rachel, anticipating Sarah's negativity, instinctively took her by the arm and led her out of the room, leaving Emily in the care of a nurse who had just arrived. "If you keep meddling in the patients' lives like this, even Dr. Thomas, who always supports you, will end up abandoning you," provoked Sarah, the sarcasm evident in her voice. Rachel, visibly irritated, responded firmly, "Dr. Sarah, if you have nothing constructive to do, I suggest you save your comments and keep your opinions to yourself. My priority is the well-being of the patients, and empathy is part of my job." Sarah cast a disdainful look before walking away, muttering threats of retaliation. Her envy of Rachel was clear, always trying to create conflicts with the doctor known for her genuine care for patients. When Rachel returned to the room, she found Emily still with teary eyes. Unsure of how to console the girl exactly, she acted on impulse. "How about we take a walk around the hospital?" Rachel suggested, trying to lighten Emily's face. The suggestion made the girl's eyes shine. Rachel carefully settled Emily in a wheelchair and, with a smile, took her to the hospital cafeteria. There, she chose a light dessert for Emily, who smiled shyly in gratitude. They shared a moment of tranquility and connection. Inspired by the brief relief, Rachel suggested, "I have an idea. How about we go to the ice cream shop next door?" Emily's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Really? I'd love that," she exclaimed, her voice filled with an enthusiasm that hadn't been there for days. "Of course, dear. Let's go," confirmed Rachel. At the ice cream shop, Emily's joy was palpable. The girl chose strawberry ice cream, savoring each spoonful with a pleasure that made Rachel smile. For a moment, It seemed that the tears and worries had been forgotten. When we returned to the room, I have a surprise for you, Rachel said, happy with the change in the girl's mood. Back at the hospital, Rachel helped Emily get settled in bed and pulled out a delicate necklace with a cross, very special to her. With a smile, she offered it to Emily, explaining that it was a protective amulet. Emily's eyes sparkled when she saw the necklace, but she soon hesitated, remembering her stepfather's words. My stepfather said I can't accept anything from strangers, Emily said with a cautious expression. A chill ran down Rachel's spine at hearing this. She cast a worried glance at Dr. Thomas, who had just entered the room. At that moment, a nurse came in to examine Emily, giving Thomas the opportunity to pull Rachel aside. Rachel, we need to maintain a professional distance from the patients. We can't get emotionally involved, much less take them out of the hospital, advised Thomas, mixing seriousness with empathy. Sorry, Dr. Thomas. I acted on impulse. I just wanted the best for Emily. I promise it won't happen again, assured Rachel, acknowledging her mistake. After Dr. Thomas left, Rachel sat next to Emily and asked with a smile, Hello, dear. How do you feel after that delicious ice cream? I'm much better, Dr. Rachel. Thank you for taking care of me. It's been so long since I had ice cream. We don't have money for that at home, Emily responded, her expression sad again. Rachel noticed the change in Emily's mood, especially when she mentioned her stepfather. I see you get nervous when John visits you. Is there something that worries you, dear? Rachel asked, trying to understand. It's because I'm afraid of him, Emily admitted, looking away, reluctant to open up. You can trust me, Emily. I'm here to help, and together we can face whatever is bothering you, Rachel offered, her voice full of support. At that moment, John entered the room, interrupting the conversation with a cold look. Doctor, I ask you not to disturb Emily. She needs to rest and recover to leave the hospital soon, John said, visibly irritated by Rachel's closeness. Mr. John, I'm just trying to understand how I can help. If there's something that could worsen her health, I need to know to assist, Rachel replied, her concern evident. Her personal life is not something that should be discussed here, right? John said firmly. Sorry, Mr. John, but I can't ignore the signs of anxiety in Emily. She is my patient, and I care about her. And yes, we need to discuss her personal life if it interferes with her safety and health, Rachel answered, determined. Taking Emily out for ice cream without my permission, you are overstepping your bounds, doctor, accused John. I just wanted to provide a moment of joy for Emily. I recognize that I should have asked your permission. I apologize for that, Mr. John. Rachel tried to alleviate the tension. Only I am responsible for Emily, not you. If it weren't for Dr. Sarah, I wouldn't even know that Emily had left the hospital. I hope this doesn't happen again. Have a good day, John said, irritated, and left. After John left, Rachel returned to Emily's room. The girl was calmer, but the worry still lingered in the air. Reflecting on the situation, Rachel promised herself that she would do everything in her power to ensure Emily's safety and well-being. She knew that the girl needed more than medical care. She needed someone to protect her. Intrigued by John's discomfort in mentioning their personal life, Rachel decided to search Emily's previous medical records. Perhaps it wasn't the first time Emily had been admitted to that hospital, and previous records could offer clues about what was happening. Opening the file from the previous year, Rachel read about Emily's diagnosis, the list of medications, and the description of the procedures. Reaching the section about the guardians, she saw only the stepfather's name listed as the companion. Why is there no mention of the parents? Rachel murmured, intrigued. In Emily's file, her mother's name was present, but in none of the hospital visits had the girl been accompanied by her. Was it possible that her mother had passed away? Full of doubts, Rachel decided to investigate further. She needed to understand what was really happening with Emily and ensure that the girl did not return to a situation that could threaten her safety and well-being. The determination to protect Emily only grew, reinforced by each piece of the puzzle she discovered. As Emily's case became increasingly complex, the social worker, accompanied by a psychologist, began a deeper investigation into the girl's life. The psychologist asked Emily to draw some pictures while trying to talk to her. Emily, can you tell me a little about your mother? Asked the psychologist gently. She ran away. I don't know where she is, replied Emily in a low voice. Your mother ran away from whom, dear? The psychologist inquired, hoping Emily could open up a bit more about the situation. Emily remained silent, lowering her head and avoiding eye contact, clearly uncomfortable with answering. After a moment of silence, the psychologist tried again. And your real father, where is he? Daddy in heaven took him, Emily said, her eyes sad. The psychologist paused, observing Emily's drawings. In one of them, the girl had drawn herself happily beside Dr. Rachel. In another, she appeared sad next to a man the psychologist presumed to be her stepfather, John. And John, your stepfather, has he ever done anything bad to you, dear? The psychologist asked, trying not to sound accusatory. Emily just shook her head in denial, but the sadness in her eyes and her hesitant manner did not convince the psychologist that she was telling the truth. The heavy silence in the air indicated there was more to uncover. Meanwhile, the social worker went to the address listed in Emily's medical record. The house was empty, and speaking with neighbors, she discovered that John had moved a few months ago. No one knew where he had gone, making the investigation even more complex. After a long shift, Rachel left the hospital with a heavy heart, her worries about Emily weighing on her mind. The night air was cool, but she felt a warm heaviness in her chest that wouldn't let her relax. When she arrived home, she was greeted by the comforting aroma of dinner being prepared. Samuel, her father, was busy in the kitchen, but when he saw Rachel, he smiled and indicated for her to sit. He knew something was bothering her, and the kitchen was where they always discussed important matters. Hi, my daughter. How was your day? He asked, his voice calm but full of paternal curiosity. Rachel sat heavily in the kitchen chair and began to recount the day's events. She spoke about the challenges with Emily, the strange behavior of her stepfather, the peculiarity of the file listing only John as responsible, and the social worker's findings. Sweetheart, be aware of how much you're getting involved with this girl. Note that she's becoming too special to you, Samuel pondered, his tone gentle but serious. Reflecting, Rachel realized how much Emily had become a central figure in her thoughts. The care and affection she felt for Emily went beyond her professional duty. Samuel continued preparing dinner, but his movements were deliberate, a sign he was carefully choosing his words. I know, my daughter, that it's difficult not to get involved, especially when it comes to a child. But remember how hard it was for your mother. She also wanted to help everyone who crossed her path, but she had to recognize the limits, Samuel said, serving the table. As they dined, Samuel shared memories of when Rachel's mother battled cancer. He described how, even exhausted and fighting her own battle, she still tried to help other patients she met during chemotherapy sessions. She came home so drained that she could sleep for days, and it still wouldn't be enough. Samuel continued, his voice soft but laden with painful memories. The desire to help is a blessing, but it needs to be balanced with the reality of what we can do. Samuel smiled at Rachel, offering a broader perspective. He mentioned his volunteer work at the nursing home, where many elderly people did not receive family visits and relied on the few moments of joy provided by volunteers and performers. Imagine, my daughter, if I got involved with everyone, I would end up bringing everyone home. Sometimes we have to accept our limits to help in the best way possible, Samuel said, smiling lightly but with a serious tone. Rachel absorbed her father's words with care and attention, recognizing the wisdom in his experience. Samuel suggested that she help Emily in a way that respected the girl's privacy and her family's, especially given the evident discomfort of the stepfather. What you need to know, you will know at the right time, my daughter, he assured, touching Rachel's hand gently. She felt comfort in her father's tranquil presence, and they concluded the conversation with the certainty that Samuel would be there to support Rachel in whatever she needed. The next morning, Rachel woke up early, her heart racing. Her father's words echoed in her mind, but her worries about Emily wouldn't let her rest. After getting ready quickly, she returned to the hospital, driven by the need to see the girl. Upon arriving at the hospital, she was informed by the nurses that Emily had suffered a severe crisis during the night. The girl had felt very ill, and to make matters worse, John was not answering the calls. Rachel's heart tightened at hearing this. The nurses reported that a woman with a neglected appearance, blonde hair, and disheveled clothes had appeared at the reception, claiming to be Emily's mother. After a brief visit, she hurriedly left the hospital. Shortly after, Emily began to have difficulty breathing. Rachel rushed to Emily's room and found the girl lying down, breathing with difficulty. The nurse beside her tried to comfort her, but Rachel quickly approached. "Emily, my dear, what happened?" she asked urgently. "It was my mother. She said she wanted to take me with her." "I don't want to leave here, doctor. Please don't let her take me," Emily pleaded, her big eyes full of fear. Rachel tried to calm her, her heart breaking at the girl's desperation. Immediately, she called John to report the incident. Hearing about the woman's visit, the stepfather headed straight to the hospital. Upon arriving, John was irritated and insisted on transferring Emily to another hospital. "Please calm down. It's not necessary to transfer Emily now. She's improving and will probably be discharged later today. She had an anxiety attack now because of the stress caused by the woman's visit, but we can resolve this together." "Do you know the blonde woman who came to get Emily? Is she really her mother?" Rachel asked, trying to maintain composure. "That's the least of our worries now. How could you let a stranger enter the hospital to see Emily without my permission?" John complained, showing a mix of agitation and nervousness. "I understand your concern, Mr. John, but we can't interrupt her medication now. Once the treatment is finished by the end of the afternoon, we can discharge her for recovery at home. Her tests are good, so she can be discharged," Rachel replied, trying to stay calm. "I didn't know she would be discharged today. Can you delay her discharge for another day?" "I have an urgent matter to resolve today and can't take her with me," John asked tensely. Rachel, caught off guard, hesitated but wanted to ensure Emily's safety. She suggested a solution. "I can't extend her hospital stay, but if necessary, I can take Emily to my home tonight and stay with her until tomorrow. That way, you can resolve your matters and ensure she is safe," offered Rachel, hoping to alleviate the situation. The truth was that Rachel could indeed extend Emily's stay for another day, but she preferred to say she couldn't. She wanted to take Emily to her home, gain more trust from the girl, and discover what was really happening with her. Besides, she knew that at her home, Emily would be safer without the risk of the stepfather suddenly appearing at the hospital and taking her away. John, with few alternatives, consented. However, it was necessary for him to be present at the hospital at the time of Emily's discharge, highlighting the importance of his presence for the girl's proper release. Excited by the idea, Rachel contacted her father, Samuel, asking him to prepare the guest room for Emily. Her father, always understanding, assured her that everything would be perfect when they arrived. At the hospital, Rachel spoke with her superior, Thomas, and requested a few days off after discharging Emily, omitting the details of the unusual favor she was doing for John. Thomas, noting Rachel's fatigue, agreed without hesitation. When evening came, John completed the discharge formalities for Emily. Seeing Rachel, he thanked her and left in a hurry, promising to return for Emily soon. Rachel, holding the girl's hand, felt a mix of relief and worry as they prepared to leave the hospital. Emily, with big, hopeful eyes, seemed anxious but also relieved to know she would spend the night in a safe environment. As she drove home, Rachel explained kindly, "We'll spend the night at my father's house. You'll like him. He's a very kind person, and we have a special room just for you." Emily looked at Rachel with a mix of gratitude and nervousness. The idea of a new place seemed to bring some comfort, but the uncertainty about what would come next still hung in the air. Arriving home, Samuel greeted them with a warm smile. The room was prepared, decorated with care, and when Emily entered, her eyes shone, and she gave a shy smile, finally seeming to feel safe. "Here is your space, Emily. Make yourself at home. You are our special guest," said Samuel with a touch of warmth. Rachel observed the scene, feeling a wave of tenderness. The security and calm of home seemed to envelop Emily, and for a moment, Rachel hoped the girl's worries would be replaced by a bit of peace. Emily, now in her own clothes instead of a hospital gown, revealed her situation through the worn garments, which moved Rachel to improve at least a little bit of the girl's condition. Rachel went to a local store to buy new clothes for Emily, leaving her in the care of her father, Samuel. Upon returning with the new clothes, Rachel showed them to Emily, whose eyes filled with tears at the sight of the items. "These are for you, Emily. Rachel said kindly. Emily was radiant, touching the clothes with care and admiration, but she soon hesitated, remembering her stepfather's prohibition against accepting gifts from strangers. Noticing the hesitation, Rachel sat next to her and spoke gently. My dear, you can accept these. I'm not a stranger anymore. Your stepfather agreed to leave you in my care tonight. With eyes still brimming with tears and a shy smile, Emily accepted the clothes. After a moment of silence, she looked at Rachel and murmured, It's been many years since I've had new clothes. Rachel's heart ached upon hearing this. She held Emily's hands and replied with a choked voice, Now you do, dear. And if you ever need anything, know that I'm here for you. Taking advantage of the moment, Rachel took out the delicate necklace with the cross that Emily had previously refused. Holding it in front of the girl, she said, This necklace was a gift from my mother. She gave it to me for protection, but I think it would look better on you now. I want you to have it, Emily, to protect you too. Emily looked at the necklace, her eyes shining with emotion. With a shy and grateful smile, she accepted the gift, feeling even more loved and protected. A solitary tear rolled down her cheek as she hugged Rachel, finding comfort she hadn't felt in a long time. That night, Samuel prepared a healthy dinner, thinking about Emily's well-being. The girl was surprised by the amount of food on the table. Doctor, can I take some home? I always feel hungry at night because we have little food there, Emily asked with a sad expression. Of course, dear. Tomorrow, before you leave, I'll prepare a container for you, Rachel replied with teary eyes, exchanging a look with her father. But tell me, Emily, what did your stepfather have to resolve that was so urgent? Rachel asked, trying to understand the situation. I can't talk about my life, Dr. Rachel. John doesn't like it, Emily replied, ending the conversation. The weight of her words left Rachel thinking. Trying to change the subject, she added, I'm very hungry. Can I eat now? Of course, my dear. Help yourself and eat as much as you want, Rachel said with a welcoming smile. The girl ate as if there were no tomorrow, delighting in Samuel's cooking. After dinner, Rachel suggested they watch a movie together. They settled on the sofa, and Emily, relaxed and with a full stomach, fell asleep before the movie ended. Gently, Rachel carried her to the guest room, covering her carefully as if she were her own daughter. She felt great pity for the girl, and her heart ached imagining what she might have gone through. While arranging the blanket, Rachel murmured, My room is right there, dear. If you need anything, you can call me. With a tender look at Emily, Rachel turned off the light and left the room, her heart heavy but determined to protect the girl at all costs. The next morning, Emily woke up with intense hunger. Seeing the table filled with options, she asked again if she could take some food home. Rachel, with teary eyes and a tight heart, replied, Of course, dear. I'm preparing delicious things for you to take. The living room was carefully organized with educational games, and right after breakfast, they started playing together. While playing, Rachel watched Emily and felt a pang in her heart. Emily, such a sweet and gentle child, didn't deserve to go through what she was going through. She deserved a peaceful home full of love and abundance. Emily enjoyed every moment, turning the morning into a perfect blend of fun and learning. Rachel's home became a true refuge for Emily, a place of comfort and joy that offered a break from the turbulence of her life. Suddenly, a noise at the door interrupted the tranquility. Rachel's father went to answer it and found John there to pick up Emily. The girl, lost in the games and laughter, showed reluctance to leave. Let's go, Emily, John called, his voice impatient. But already? Emily asked, surprised and disappointed. Yes, Emily, come now, he insisted, leaving no room for negotiation. Emily's joy faded instantly, replaced by growing unease. With John waiting at the door, the girl began to cry, clinging to Rachel as if trying to find security in her protective presence. Don't let him take me, Dr. Rachel, please, she murmured, her voice breaking with emotion. John remained impassive, his eyes hiding more than they revealed. Emily, I'm not asking. I'm ordering. Let's go now, he said impatiently. Rachel felt a helpless anger growing inside her, but knew she couldn't intervene directly. Is everything okay, John? Can I help with something? She asked, perhaps naively trying to penetrate the armor of coldness that John exuded. He, accustomed to dealing with his personal storms, ignored Rachel's offer, raising a wall of silence that even her sincere concern couldn't break. Samuel, observing the scene, opted to stay in the background, offering silent support, aware that Rachel needed to face this battle alone. Although reluctant and with growing suspicions that Emily might be suffering abuse, Rachel prepared the girl with care. She picked up the backpack she had packed for Emily, filled with everything she might need, along with the food prepared with care, each item symbolizing Rachel's unconditional affection. "Emily, I'm sorry, but you need to obey your stepfather. I promise everything will be okay. Trust me," said Rachel, trying to bring tranquility to the farewell. Emily nodded, her tears still falling as she looked at Rachel. The girl resignedly let go and followed John, leaving a heavy and sad silence in the house that had been her temporary refuge. John, holding Emily's hand, guided her out of the house that, for a brief moment, had been a sanctuary of laughter and learning. Rachel remained at the door, her heart heavy, watching them walk away, wrapped in a whirlwind of emotions. She felt powerless but determined to find out what was really happening with Emily. The pain and anxiety in the girl's eyes as she left with her stepfather reinforced Rachel's suspicions of neglect and abuse and intensified her resolve to help Emily find a safe and loving environment. Driven by a mix of determination and despair, Rachel got into her car, starting the engine with almost automatic speed, and decided to follow them. With John and Emily now ahead, visible only as shadows through the rear window, Rachel felt a strong urge to act, stepping on the accelerator. Rachel followed John's car, the road unfolding into a labyrinth of curves and straights, each bringing its own challenge. John maneuvered his car through increasingly narrow and degraded streets, forcing Rachel to slow down. Her heart raced, reflecting the intensity of the pursuit and the uncertainty of what they would find. After a few kilometers, they arrived in a neighborhood marked by poverty. The houses were small and clustered, many with worn facades painted in faded colors. The streets were full of potholes and scattered trash, creating a sense of abandonment. Graffiti-covered walls told stories of frustration and rebellion, while the polluted air brought a pungent smell that made it difficult to breathe deeply. When John's car finally stopped, Rachel watched as he and Emily got out. The surrounding landscape reflected the harsh reality of the girl's life. Rachel followed their movements with her eyes until they entered an old house, its fragile structure seeming suspended in time, resembling an abandoned and forgotten ranch. Guided more by a protective instinct than by words, Rachel approached the old house and found a window through which she could spy on the interior. Her heart pounded in her throat as she tried to catch fragments of the conversation between John and Emily. She moved silently, trying to stay close to the time-worn walls, her senses heightened as she focused on the voices coming from inside. Rachel felt adrenaline coursing through her veins, her hands trembling slightly, and the cold of the environment seemed to intensify her nervousness. Every word she managed to catch only increased her concern. "Don't tell anyone we're here. I don't want you going outside, understand?" John's voice was filled with urgency and secrecy. The anguish became more palpable with each word she heard, confirming her worst fears. As she tried to get closer to the wall to hear better, she accidentally stepped on loose gravel, producing a dry sound that broke the tense silence. The noise echoed, and Rachel felt her heart race even faster. Her eyes widened in shock, her body freezing with the fear of being discovered. John turned abruptly, his face showing a mix of surprise and worry upon seeing Rachel outside. She knew that moment could change everything, and the feeling of being on the brink of collapse under the pressure of the situation overwhelmed her. She had no way to turn back now, and the certainty of what would come next was almost unbearable. "Doctor, what are you doing here?" John asked, his voice tinged with fear and defiance. Rachel struggled to find words, her voice faltering. "Dr. Rachel, did you come to get me? Are you going to take me back to your house?" Emily shouted with joy upon seeing her, the innocence and happiness on her face clear. John looked at Rachel with incredulity. Rachel knelt to hug Emily, giving the girl a moment of pure affection before standing to face John's unspoken questions. Emily, dear, I came because I needed to make sure you're okay. And John, I know my presence here is unexpected, but Emily was very reluctant to go with you from the hospital. She showed signs of unease around you, and I'm concerned she might be suffering from abuse or mistreatment. I can't ignore that. I apologize for following you, but I really need to understand what's going on. Otherwise, I'll have to call the police to investigate, Rachel said firmly and determinedly. Abuse? Mistreatment? Is that what you think? Please, come in and see for yourself. I'll tell you everything so you can get these ridiculous ideas out of your head, John finally conceded, his face marked by the weight of the situation. Rachel entered the house, and the scene she found surpassed her worst expectations, leaving her in shock. The house was in deplorable conditions, and John's vulnerability became evident as he began to cry. You're interpreting everything wrong, Doctor. Our situation is much more complex than it seems, he sobbed between words. Rachel, trying to calm John despite being deeply shaken by the harsh reality they faced, listened to him. For a girl with a delicate health condition, that environment was extremely dangerous. The humidity and dust contributed to mold and fungal growth, silent threats to Emily's recovering lungs. The accumulated dirt on the floor indicated that cleaning had been neglected for a long time. 2 old beds occupied a corner of the house, their wooden frames worn and supporting thin, torn mattresses, witnesses of uncomfortable and sleepless nights. The kitchen was sparsely furnished with only a few basic utensils scattered on rusty shelves. The living room had a torn sofa with foam escaping through various slits, and the peeling walls revealed layers of old paint. John pulled up an old, creaking chair, unstable, and motioned for Dr. Rachel to sit. Emily was left by her mother, Andrea. I don't know how, but Andrea found my address and came looking for me. That's when she discovered Emily was in the hospital. She's obsessed with getting the girl back. She thinks it can save her from prison. She abandoned her own daughter and now wants to take her back just to try to avoid jail, John explained, his eyes shining with sadness. Dr. Rachel, touched by John's vulnerability, forgot about the rude way he had treated her before. She reached out in a gesture of support, encouraging him to continue. Feeling a little more comfortable, he went on. Emily's fear of leaving the hospital was because of this. She was terrified of being found and taken by her mother. She associated my presence with Andrea's imminent arrival, which made her extremely anxious. I felt that while she was in the hospital, I couldn't protect her from her mother as I should. That's why I was desperate to get her out of there. But Emily wanted to stay with you because she felt safe and well cared for. She also liked the food and desserts at the hospital, besides the care you provided for her. I struggle to offer the same, but my financial condition doesn't help. This situation saddens me deeply, John said, showing his fragility. The truth was that John had always known that Andrea, Emily's mother, was never an easy person to deal with. The relationship between Andrea and Emily's biological father had everything to go wrong from the beginning. They met in a rehabilitation clinic, trying to overcome their dependencies on drugs and alcohol. United by a common goal, this quest for sobriety accompanied them until Emily's unexpected birth. However, instead of uniting the couple, the girl's birth triggered a series of conflicts. What should have been a moment to strengthen the bond ended up provoking fights and disagreements, leading the couple back to addiction with even more intensity. The father's already weakened health resulted in a fatal overdose a few months after Emily's arrival. After her husband's tragic death, Andrea fell into an abyss of depression and relapses. Without the financial support she once had, her elderly mother, with few resources, fearing losing her daughter and granddaughter, took them in, offering what little she had. During this turbulent period, Andrea met John, a man marked by loneliness and romantic disappointments. He saw in Andrea not just a woman in need of support, but also an opportunity to heal his own wounds, deluding himself into believing he could be the pillar she needed. They married quickly, and John adopted Emily as his own daughter, nurturing the dream of forming the family he had always desired. However, Andrea resisted any attempt at stability. She had promised John before they married that she would leave addiction for good. However, Andrea not only failed to keep her promise but sank even further. Besides the addiction, she began to involve herself in illegal activities, seeking an escape from the suffocating routine and the responsibilities of caring for Emily, who often needed medical care. What started as minor offenses soon evolved into more serious crimes, dragging Andrea into the depths of the criminal world. When Andrea abandoned the family, leaving them in poverty due to her bad choices, John found himself in the difficult position of raising Emily alone. The girl's grandmother, already frail from age, had passed away months before they were abandoned. Emily, still too young to understand the magnitude of the situation, felt her mother's absence but saw in John a safe haven. Despite the adversities they faced, Andrea had stolen all of John's money and caused a commotion in front of the store where he worked, demanding more money and spreading lies about his character. At that time, Andrea was already being sought by the police, but managed to stay hidden until today. One unexpected day, while John and Emily were settled in their new residence, Andrea appeared suddenly, determined to take the girl. She claimed that taking care of Emily, her sick daughter, could earn her a lighter sentence. Andrea justified that if the authorities saw she had a sick daughter to care for, they might reduce her sentence. John, realizing that Andrea wanted to take Emily only for selfish reasons, expelled her without hesitation. "Leave us alone. You won't take Emily from here," he declared firmly. Meanwhile, Emily cried, hiding in the bedroom, terrified by the tension unfolding before her eyes. Andrea, frustrated, began to threaten John, insinuating that terrible things could happen if he didn't comply. But John, despite his insecurities and constant struggle against poverty, remained firm, determined to protect Emily from Andrea's destructive influence, even without having official custody of the girl. This determination led John and Emily to move frequently, seeking stability, which wasn't always possible. Many times, John prioritized the little money he had for Emily's medical care over paying rent, eventually leading them to live in an abandoned house. John's struggle went beyond material poverty. It was also against Andrea's past, which continued to threaten Emily's safety and well-being. He promised to protect her at all costs. After revealing this tormenting story, John concluded his account with a tone of resignation, directing himself to Dr. Rachel, explaining that this paranoia had taken over him, leading him to live in constant distrust and overprotection towards Emily. He confessed that he was always afraid that something bad would happen, and he wouldn't be there to help. He acknowledged that this anxiety explained his rudeness, his irritation, and his reluctance to open up about his life. He feared that revealing too much would make him a target of investigations, potentially resulting in Emily being taken from him. Rachel, deeply moved by John's and Emily's journey, couldn't hold back the tears that welled up in her eyes. Overcoming the limits of her comfort, she made an offer. "I have a house that I rent out for short stays, but you can stay there for as long as you need," she offered with a sincerity that pierced the heavy atmosphere. "There, you will be safe, away from danger, until we can resolve this situation," she added. John, whose life was shaped by hardship and distrust, found Rachel's gesture both comforting and unsettling. The idea of accepting help, although genuinely kind, made him uncomfortable, exposing his vulnerability. Accepting meant admitting his limitations and his inability to face all challenges alone, but Emily's health was his non-negotiable priority. "I appreciate it very much, doctor, but the little money I earn doesn't cover rent because Emily's medicines are expensive," John explained, his words heavy with gratitude and reluctance. Rachel, understanding his hesitation, added firmly, "You can stay as long as necessary. You don't need to pay anything, not even the utility bills. But I have one condition. I want to be able to visit Emily whenever I want." John, feeling the weight of his emotional barriers breaking, found a glimmer of hope. He murmured words of gratitude as tears rolled down his face. Rachel, her voice filled with strength and comfort, assured him that they were in this situation together and that he and Emily were not alone. This simple, profound gesture broke John's final resistance. Rachel's vacation home, once just a place for travelers, was about to become a refuge for wounded hearts and exhausted souls, a beacon of light in the darkness John and Emily had faced alone for so long. The most significant impact came with the arrest of Andrea, Emily's mother, whose illicit actions finally met justice. The revelation of her crimes, a grim list including thefts, illegal activities, and a daring escape from the law, surprised everyone but brought enormous relief to John. It wasn't joy over someone else's misfortune, but a renewed hope for Emily's future, now free from her mother's harmful shadow. During this time, the relationship between John and Rachel blossomed from cautious coexistence to a solid and deep friendship. Initially united by Emily's well-being, they discovered shared interests and mutual respect that strengthened daily. Rachel, with her compassion and empathy, and John, with his growing gratitude and desire to start over, found unexpected support in each other. Samuel, for his part, played a crucial role in John's reintegration into society. He used his connections to help John get a security job at a local mall, a significant step in rebuilding his life. The mall manager, who became a friend and mentor, saw beyond John's complicated past, recognizing his dedication and desire for change. For Emily, the change was perhaps the sweetest. Returning to school and resuming the routines of childhood brought the much-desired normalcy to her life. For the first time in a long while, she began to feel like just a child, free from the adult complications that haunted her. The decisive step in the battle for Emily's stability came when John started the legal process to obtain permanent custody. Samuel, aware of the importance of a good support network, introduced John to a lawyer friend specializing in family cases. The lawyer, driven by the pursuit of justice and touched by their story, dove headfirst into the case. His investigations revealed even more about Andrea's crimes, most crucially her abandonment of Emily. Armed with irrefutable evidence, he took the case to court, arguing fervently that John was, without a doubt, the best chance for a secure and loving future for Emily. When the judge granted John custody, it was more than a legal victory. It was the recognition of a rebuilt home, a future rescued from the ashes of the past. With the support of Rachel and Samuel, John was now prepared to offer Emily the love and stability she always deserved. "I don't even know how to express my gratitude to you, Dr. Rachel and Mr. Samuel. Thanks to you, I've renewed my faith in people," John revealed, deeply moved. "This means everything to me. You have been true angels in our lives," he concluded, tears in his eyes. As time passed, John's dedication bore fruit. Financially established, he managed to rent his own house, a cozy and well-maintained place that